Donald Trump has promised to arm Ukraine to the teeth. French President Emmanuel Macron is moving forward with his idea to deploy European troops to Ukraine. Meanwhile, Bashar Assad's regime has collapsed and it has become biggest humiliation for Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. So what did Donald Trump say about ending the war in Ukraine, and what kind of plan does Emmanuel Macron have? So according to the Wall Street Journal, Donald Trump has supported sending European troops to Ukraine. So there was a big discussions between US President-elect Donald Trump, French President Emmanuel Macron, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Paris, and leaders discussed the possibility of ending the war in Ukraine as soon as possible. And Emmanuel Macron proposed to send troops to Ukraine to enforce a ceasefire deal as soon as possible. In the response, Donald Trump supported this idea. He supports sending European troops to Ukraine. Moreover, he says that European allies should double down their support for Ukraine at that time, that the United States should reduce support for Ukraine, because European allies should spend more on Ukrainian defense. Also, US President-elect Donald Trump says that he would like European allies to put more pressure on Vladimir Putin, to force Putin to negotiate with Ukraine in good faith. Moreover, he urged European leaders to put more pressure on China, to force China to move ahead, to go after Vladimir Putin, to turn against Vladimir Putin, and to force Kremlin to negotiate with Ukraine in a good faith. Meanwhile, Reuters reported about another plan to send troops to Ukraine. According to this publication, 5 or 8 European countries are ready right now to send troops to Ukraine. So according to Reuters, European allies are ready to do that, are ready to send troops to enforce a proper ceasefire deal, and this topic has been discussed among European allies, European leaders, and French President Emmanuel Macron discussed this topic with Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. So there is a plan to freeze the war in Ukraine, to organize a ceasefire, but Ukraine, on the other hand, needs strong security guarantees, and this kind of role would European troops play. Such troops will guarantee Ukraine that Russia will not invade Ukraine again in the future, because such troops will be deployed to the front line, to a demilitarized zone, and that's how the war in Ukraine could be finished. However, at the same time, we don't know yet if Vladimir Putin is ready to agree with that, and if Donald Trump is ready to put more pressure on Putin to force him to agree with that. Also, yes, President-elect Donald Trump says that he would not abandon Ukraine. The statement was made in his latest interview with Time. Also, according to the Donald Trump, he will not abandon Ukraine. He will use support for Ukraine as an instrument of leverage on Vladimir Putin. He will use this as a tool of pressure, to put more pressure on Vladimir Putin, so he can say Vladimir Putin, stop the war, negotiate with Ukraine, or you will face catastrophic consequences, because Ukraine in such case will receive all what is needed for Ukraine's victory in military means. That's why President Trump can put more pressure on Vladimir Putin and force him to a negotiation table. On the other hand, US President-elect Donald Trump does not support allowing Ukraine to strike deep inside Russia with US-made weapons, but it is really uncertain today how can Donald Trump force Vladimir Putin, get him to a negotiation table without such strikes inside Russia, because these specific strikes inside Russia put more pressure on Vladimir Putin. Such strikes humiliate and undermine his reputation as a Russian leader inside Russia. That's why Donald Trump can instead use the strikes to put more pressure on Vladimir Putin and to force him, to get him to a negotiation table. That's why President Trump should consider allowing Ukraine to strike deep inside Russia, and this will strengthen Ukraine's negotiating position. And that's why also, on the other hand, President Zelensky proposed to allow Ukraine to strike deep inside Russia to put more pressure on Kremlin. Meanwhile, CNN reported that President Biden was working to arm Ukraine to its teeth before Donald Trump enters the White House. So according to CNN, President Biden's team is working around the clock to provide Ukraine with all what is needed, with additional weapons, missiles for air defense systems, and artillery shells to help Ukraine to defend itself next year, to continue to fight Russia next year when Donald Trump will enter the White House and stop aiding Ukraine. And Jake Sullivan is coordinating this plan, and the US will do everything what they can to allow Ukraine to defend itself against Russian aggression, even the next year, even the next stage of this war. Meanwhile, Michael McFaul, former US ambassador to Russia, says that only membership in NATO will allow Ukraine to have just and long-standing peace. So according to McFaul, in his recent article in Foreign Affairs, Ukraine should be invited to NATO in that day after Putin and Zelensky reaches a ceasefire deal. And this would be the best security guarantee for Ukraine, and he is right, because President Zelensky has proposed a victory plan to end the war in Ukraine. So President Zelensky supports ending the war ceasefire in exchange of Ukraine's membership in NATO. NATO's fifth article could be activated only for Ukraine's controlled territory, and that's why the world war would be avoided. However, it is uncertainty. It is unknown whether Vladimir Putin would support that. That's why European allies have organized another good idea, alternative to NATO's membership, to deploy European troops to Ukraine, which would guarantee peace and stability. So despite the fact of what kind of plan Donald Trump will try to move forward with, it is really lots of depends on the security guarantees. What kind of security guarantees Ukraine will be provided? This is the key question, and key answer should be given by Donald Trump's administration, and let's hope that he will move forward with a peace through strength, but not through weakness, because Ukraine should be armed to its teeth to negotiate with Russia from a position of strength. And in the end of our conversation, we will cover current situation in Syria. So follows the Bashar al-Assad's regime has been really biggest humiliation for Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. So Vladimir Putin has been demonstrating himself as a big player on international stage, as a big strategist. However, it's untrue, because he's a big loser at the international stage around the globe, because he could not help Bashar al-Assad to stay in power, because all his troops are engaged in the war against Ukraine. That's why he couldn't help Assad. He didn't have enough resources to do so, and the one option which was in Putin's hands to withdraw his troops, and now Russia is withdrawing its troops from Syria, from 2 air bases, from 1 air base and another base in Syria. So Bloomberg also reported that Russian government is conducting negotiations with Syrian rebels about the possibility of staying and of not leaving Syria, but for possibility to preserving 2 military bases. However, it is unknown whether they will have those bases in Syria, because it is still unknown what kind of government Syria will have in the future, and what kind of a role Syrian rebels will play in such government. So we will continue to analyze this, and as times move forward, we will know a little bit more about who will really govern Syrian Republic, Syria, and who will really hold this grip on power inside Syria? Will the rebels be just a military force of the Syrian Republic, or they will govern Syria as a democratic elected government, or just as a self-elected government? It is still unknown, but stay with us on YouTube and we will analyze all recent developments around the globe. That's all for today. Stay with us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and glory to Ukraine.